members of BioNJ. I am here with Steve Burrill, the 7th annual Burrill Personalized Medicine meeting in San Francisco. Steve has graciously taken some time to share his insights with BioNJ. Thank you, Steve.
This is our 7th year in running this meeting. We have 300-ish people that come from all over the world to really understand the world of personalized medicine. I started a number of years ago because I thought the dialogue around personalized medicine was an important dialogue. I think everybody has a little different definition of what personalized medicine is, what it means, how value is going to be created. Some think it's a surrogate for just molecular diagnostics and that all we're really talking about is the next generation molecular diagnostics companies. Others view it more holistically. I think the pharmaceutical industry views it as a vehicle to get to targeted therapeutics. I think the diagnostic industry looks at it as a vehicle to provide tests and other things that are important. I think so we've tried to attract a number of very interesting people and have a dialogue around it. Interesting, Francis Collins, a friend of mine who runs the NIH, called me up and said, Steve, I've got to be at your meeting and speak at your meeting. So it's got enough pizzazz that important people want to be here and talk about what they're doing. And so we try and do an overview at one level, my overview of what's going on in the industry, and we try and dissect it. Healthcare system. Fundamentally, the healthcare system has had a one-size-fits-all mentality, and we've had a cost or a cost reimbursement-based system, particularly in this country. But in most of the countries of the world, we've looked at what healthcare has cost, and we paid on some kind of a reimbursement basis. That healthcare system on a global basis is moving to a value-based system, which is to say, how are we improving outcomes at lower cost? And so the move from a cost-based system to a value-based system does enable us to some extent in the world of personalized medicine to change the nature of what we're doing. We're not just talking about a test that can do something that we couldn't do before that's more personalized, or a test that can say this drug will work for this patient for this condition. But we're really beginning to look more reasonably about if we can do that, how is that value created? How can you harvest that value? What is the value capture that comes out of that? So we have a phenomena, if you will, of moving from kind of this one-size-fits-all world into a value-based world today where we have technology that can do things differently, that can add value. The other confluence is really a whole series of technologies that's best demonstrated by the iPhone and others, and we see technology coming from a very different world that we have today. So here's an example where I can show you live on my iPhone my EKG. And so personalized medicine is not just molecular diagnostics, but it's seeing a confluence of technology that's enabling us to look digitally, to look at all the advances in iPhones and Android phones and all the advances of cell phones. And we live in a world in which there's 7 billion people today, 6 billion of which have cell phones. And so more people have cell phones than have access to electricity or clean water. And so if you really get into the personalization of medicine, this kind of technology is going to change enormously in terms of the technology that's available for much of the world and how they do that. Opportunities are enormous. We have the ability today to understand a large amount about what's likely to happen to you. We have a mixture of kind of, you're hardwired at birth with certain kind of base risk. You also live in an environment where that risk is modified by the way we live. We eat too much, we drink too much, we smoke too much, we live in difficult climates and so forth. So the probability of health is a function not only of nature and nurture. And so we have enormous amounts of information today. We're overwhelmed with information today that can be useful in trying to figure out what's actually really wrong with you, not the symptoms that you have, but what is actually the disease, what are the causal factors of that disease, and what can we do to reverse that. What we really have today is a system that gets at disease late, when it's easy to identify and reversibility is low. And what we're really trying to do is get down to where we get at disease before it manifests itself and try and impact the course of disease or the existence of disease rather than just treat it. And so we're moving kind of from last end, kind of one-size-fits-all world where we've got disease manifest itself, where you have low reversibility, to earlier definition of what really is disease and what are the causal factors of that and what can we do to reverse the fact that disease burden of disease. I think to some extent we have been naive, and that is that we have believed that all patients are by and large the same or similar, and that your cancer and my cancer can be treated by similar drugs. What we've learned in the last few years certainly is that's not true, that you and I, while mostly the same, there are significant differences, not just because of our sex or because of our genetics, but the way we live and what we metabolize. And so we clearly understand that there's a personalization that's going on in the context of kind of healthcare. So we have enormous resources in New Jersey of people who have spent their life in the drug industry building very, very powerful compounds that really understand disease. Now we're going to take that enormous capability and convert it to some extent to a diagnostics industry and to a personalized medicine industry that uses some of what they knew from the discovery of drugs and really apply it in a different way to create a different kind of value. So it's the natural follow-on to where we've been, and the question is, does it happen in New Jersey or does it happen here in the Silicon Valley?